Well, thank you for letting me be here tonight to express my desire for the 8th District seat. I'm a fiscal conservative, a constitutional conservative. My wife, who is here this evening, Susie, and I've been married 44 years. I spent most of my life in public service, having spent 25 years in the United States Air Force, 5 tours to Vietnam, 6 tours to Desert Storm and Desert Shield. I was responsible for the entire electronic intelligence battlefield of order for the Pacific when I worked for Admiral Crowell, who was the U.S. CINCPAC commander. I was also the chief of reconnaissance intelligence for the European theater and the Middle East. One thing we have to remember, and it's something that voters don't normally vote on, is the defense of our nation is extremely important. I've been in the Department of Defense for a long time. I know national security issues. I'm a graduate of Air War College, where we study issues important to this country. International affairs, foreign policy, terrorism. As the Chief of Intelligence for the Middle East and the European theater, we track terrorist cells. I can tell you the Benghazi episode was tragic, and Barack Obama should have lost the election based on that one alone. It wasn't just some little video that was taken. In addition to my military experience, I have 20 years working for the 2 largest international restaurant companies in the world. My master's degree is in healthcare administration, where I worked in 2 hospitals before going to the United States Air Force. And also, I was the professor of aerospace studies at Southeast Missouri State University for 4 years. So I cover a broad range of things that people are interested in. Economic development, healthcare, education, and to me one of the most important things is national defense. The threat is more real than you believe, and our lives are going to be changed beyond recognition over the next several years if we don't recognize what is happening internally to our country and externally to our country. And I look forward to answering the questions we have tonight.
In selecting our candidate, we expect to do better. We want Missouri to do better. We are close to losing what has made us strong and what makes America great. Our country is $16 trillion in debt. Our current leader wants a blank check. Joanne Emerson votes yes on what they are calling over the cliff. How do you think that could have been handled differently?
Well, first of all, this should have been handled a long time ago. We waited way too long. In fact, when they said, gee, we have to hurry up and get home for Christmas, I thought, why don't you stay there and work on this problem? I missed 3 Christmases a row in Southeast Asia, and I was being shot at. Certainly they could have stayed in Washington. We have $40 billion a day added to our national debt. When Barack Obama gets out of office, it'll be $20 trillion instead of the $16.4 trillion. We need to stop spending money. That's the bottom line. We need to stop spending money. Getting more money would only add $100 billion to the Treasury, and when you're adding $1 trillion a year, as Barack Obama did, you're not going to make up the difference.
There are 435 districts in the United States. Our district is rated the 8th poorest. Out of the 9 districts in Missouri, it is rated the poorest. The median income is $27,865, with the household income in Dick County at $32,991. What are your plans to change this?
Well, first of all, we have to make sure that we have good economic development programs in place. And one of the things that's driving away small businesses, which are the key particularly to the rural areas, we talk about the fiscal cliff. Wait till you see the regulation cliff that's coming up right behind it. Barack Obama purposely delayed a lot of the legislation that was going to affect on regulations till after the election, and you're going to see that come in. Businesses need to plan on a positive tax plan that's steady, regulations that are steady, and right now we don't have that. So we have to give a level playing field, a certain playing field to our businesses, because they're not going to invest in communities all as long as they're being taxed and are unsure what the regulation climate's going to be.
The candidate selected for this vacancy will have to be capable of raising money, rumored $200,000 to $300,000. Do you feel you're capable to raise the required funds it will take to win this race? If so, tell us how you plan to do that.
Well, I wasn't expected to be in the Missouri Senate, and people look at money. as the key to winning an election. And as I told the newspaper reporter that said, Representative, isn't this a bit risky for you? Because I had $4,000 in the bank. My opponent had over $200,000 in the bank. I was already written off as a viable candidate based on money. I said, look at the resume. The resume is what goes to Washington. The money's going to stay behind with your advertisers and the newspapers, but your credentials, your resume goes to Washington. So I'm no stranger to raising money. I'll tell you it's not my favorite part, but it's necessary, and I know how to do it.
There's been much talk about gun control. Here in the Ozarks, most of us have and use guns. This level of freedom is something to be thankful for. We always want to keep this freedom. The person we select, we want to know without a shadow of a doubt that if it comes to that they would vote to keep this freedom. On the Second Amendment.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm happy to tell you that I'm a life member of the NRA at the endowment level. You can't spend 25 years in the United States Air Force and be against firearms. Now, some of the firearms I used were bomb bay of a B-52 that carried 100, 500-pound bombs, but I strongly believe in our Second Amendment rights as part of the Constitution, and what Barack Obama is trying to do that with an executive order now is an abomination to the Constitution, and I don't think it should pass in any state. I think Wyoming just put up a bill saying that if it passes, we're not going to abide by it because it's not constitutional.
What is your position on stem cell research?
I'm happy to tell you that I don't believe in embryonic, embryonic stem cell research. And I was endorsed by Missouri Right to Life. I was the only candidate in my race that was endorsed by Missouri Right. Currently, I have 2 bills in the Senate on an abortion that we're going to meet in the Senate. And actually, I got Legislator of the Year award last year for my work on pro-life issues.
This last question. We don't want a candidate that will take the easy path and put tough decisions off. Our children and our grandchildren's futures are at stake. Convince us you wouldn't do that and why you are the best candidate for this vacancy.
Well, I've already proved that I am used to taking the tough decisions. I can tell you, flying at 35,000 feet in Vietnam and having surface-to-air missiles come at you, it's leadership under fire. And you have to make the right decision at that moment in time, and you can't waver at all. I've been used to fighting for what's right. I have my own convictions. I've read every bill when I was in the House of Representatives. I go through a lot of these. If you look at my expense report, please forgive me. I go through 2 of these a week. But you have to read the bills, and I read every one. Even my best friend could come into my office and say, I want you to sign this bill because it's full of motherhood and apple pie. Okay. And when people come into the office, I say, I'd be love to read this. They say it's full of motherhood and apple pie. I read it, and it's right, but the apples are rotten. So you have to read every bill. You can't even trust your best friend in the government.
Thank you very much. You're a life candidate.
Thank you.